In the cold silence of deep space, the star cruiser Obsidian Claw drifted like a ghost through the void, its hull scarred from countless battles, its crew weary but proud. The ship belonged to the Krylos Empire, a vast alien dominion ruled by the iron will of Emperor Vorlak, a being of towering height, obsidian scales and eyes that burned like dying stars aboard the vessel. In a gilded cage suspended from the ceiling by shimmering energy fields, sat Lily, a human girl, barely 20, with wide, blue eyes and trembling hands. She wore a simple white dress now stained with travel and fear. Her wrists bore faint bruises from the restraints that had bound her during the long journey from Earth. She had been taken not as a prisoner but as a gift. The Krylos had conquered dozens of worlds, but Earth had baffled them. Humans were soft, fragile, illogical, yet somehow they had resisted longer than expected. Their cities burned, their armies broken. But their spirit, unbroken, Emperor Vorlak, had grown curious, and so he demanded a human female, a symbol of their defiance, to be brought before him as tribute. But when Lily arrived, the Emperor was not impressed. She looked like a frightened bird, thin, pale, shaking. He scoffed and turned to his warlord General Tharn, a hulking brute with forearms and tusks like daggers. "This is your prize, Tharn," he said with a rumbling laugh. "The humans send us their weakest to mock us." Tharn growled in disappointment, but honor-bound by Krylos tradition, he could not refuse the gift. So he took Lily to his personal warship, the Iron Maw, and locked her in a chamber meant for honored guests. Though it felt more like a cell days past, Lily barely ate. She stared at the stars through the transparent wall, wondering if she would ever see Earth again. She missed her mother, the smell of rain, the sound of birds. None of that existed here. Only the hum of alien machinery and the occasional roar of Tharn's voice echoing through the halls. She tried to understand why they had chosen her. She was nobody, just a girl from a small town in Ohio who worked at a flower shop before the invasion. She had no special skills, no combat training, no great mind. She was ordinary, and that made her feel even more helpless. The Krylos guards who brought her food never spoke to her. They only watched with cold reptilian eyes, their armor clicking softly as they moved. She tried once to ask where they were going, but they ignored her completely. At night she dreamed of home, of her little sister Maya, who used to braid her hair and sing silly songs to cheer her up. She dreamed of the old oak tree in their backyard where she would read books on summer afternoons. Now those memories felt like they belonged to someone else, someone safe, someone whole. One evening, as she sat curled on the floor, tracing patterns in the dust on the floor, she heard a strange sound, a low hum that grew louder. By the second, the ship's lights flickered, then turned red. Alarms blared. The floor shook violently. Lily fell against the wall as explosions rocked the hull outside a rival faction. The Zenthari had ambushed them, their plasma cannons tearing through the Iron Maw's shields. Tharn roared over the comms, "All warriors to battle stations," but the Zenthari were cunning. They had boarded the ship, their clawed soldiers swarming the corridors, slaughtering Krylos guards with brutal efficiency. Lily pressed herself into the corner as the door to her chamber hissed open. A Zenthari warrior stepped inside, its exoskeleton gleaming, its face a nightmare of fangs and glowing eyes. It raised a serrated blade. In that moment, something inside Lily snapped. She remembered her father, a Marine who had died defending their home. She remembered the stories he told her about courage, about standing your ground even when you are afraid. She lunged not away but forward, grabbing a broken pipe from the floor and driving it into the creature's throat with all her strength. The Zenthari choked and fell. Lily stood over it, breathing hard, her hands shaking not from fear but from something else, something hot and fierce rising in her chest. She ran into the corridor, following the sounds of battle. Smoke filled the air. The lights flickered, bodies lay scattered, some Krylos, some Zenthari. The metallic smell of blood mixed with burning wires. She found Tharn pinned beneath fallen debris, his armor cracked, blood oozing from his temple. 3 Zenthari warriors circled him, laughing. In their guttural tongue, Lily did not hesitate. She grabbed a fallen plasma rifle, its weight awkward in her small hands, but she fired anyway. The blast missed but startled the enemies. One turned and lunged. She sidestepped, using the wall for balance, and slammed the rifle butt into its face. The creature staggered. She kicked its knee hard. It howled and fell. Tharn watched in stunned silence. Lily moved like water, like fire, like something born for this moment. She disarmed another Zenthari and used its own blade to slash its throat, then turned to the last one who charged with a battle cry. She ducked-rolled and came up behind it, driving the blade between its shoulder blades. Silence fell. Tharn struggled to rise. Lily helped him, his massive frame towering over her. Yet for the first time he looked at her not with pity but with awe. "You fight like a true warrior," he said, his voice rough with respect. Lily said nothing, only nodded, her eyes still burning after the battle Tharn brought her before. The Emperor once more. Vorlak sat on his obsidian throne, his expression unreadable. "Is this the same frail creature you gave me?" Tharn, he asked. "She is the same, Emperor," Tharn replied. "But she is no longer frail." Vorlak studied Lily for a long moment, then rose and walked down the steps until he stood before her. "Humans," he said, "are strange. You break easily, yet you do not stay broken." Lily met his gaze unflinching. "I am not broken," she said softly. Vorlak smiled, "A rare thing among Krylos, then prove it." He gestured to a massive vault behind him, its doors sliding open to reveal rows of ancient armor, forged from star metal and powered by the hearts of dead suns. This was the armor of the first Krylos warriors, worn only by those who earned the right through blood and honor. No human had ever worn it. Vorlak pointed to the smallest set, its design sleek yet deadly. "If you can wear it and survive its awakening, you will earn your place among us. Not as a pet, not as a gift, but as a warrior." Lily stepped forward. Without hesitation, the armor hissed as it sealed around her, forming plates over her limbs, a chest piece that glowed with inner light, a helmet that reshaped itself to her face the moment it locked into place. Energy surged through her veins, fire and ice and lightning all at once. She screamed but did not fall. When the light faded, she stood taller, stronger, her eyes blazing with power. The chamber trembled. Vorlak bowed his head slightly. "Welcome, Sister of Iron." From that day, Lily became known as the Emberblade, a human woman clad in Krylos armor who fought beside Tharn in 100 battles. She led charges through asteroid fields, defended colonies from raiders, and once stood alone against an entire Zenthari dreadnought holding the line. Until reinforcements arrived, her legend spread even to Earth, where whispers told of a girl who became a storm in armor years. Later, when peace finally came between the Krylos and other factions, Lily stood on the bridge of her own ship, the Dawn Sparrow, its hull painted with human and Krylos symbols alike. Tharn, now her closest friend, stood beside her. "You could return to Earth," he said. She looked at the star. "Earth is home," she said, "but the stars are my duty." And so the Emberblade sailed on, not as a princess, not as a prisoner, but as a warrior, forged in fire, chosen by fate, and feared by all who dared challenge the fragile human, who became the fiercest of them all. The peace that followed the Void Weaver's defeat was fragile, like thin ice over deep water. Lily felt it in the quiet hum of the Dawn Sparrow's engines, in the way her crew spoke in hushed tones during night watch. Something was coming. Something the stars themselves seemed to fear. Reports began to trickle in from the outer colonies. Strange signals from dead zones, places where no ship had traveled in centuries. The signals were not words or codes, but pulses of silence that made listeners forget why they were listening. Tharn brought the news to Lily as she stood on the observation deck watching a nebula swirl in soft purples and blues. "The Emperor is worried," he said. "The silence is spreading faster than before, and this time it carries a name." "What name?" Lily asked. "The Hollow King." No one knew who or what the Hollow King was. Old texts called it the End of Stories, the Eater of Purpose. It did not destroy worlds, it made them meaningless. People woke up and no longer knew why they got out of bed, why they loved, why they fought. Vorlak summoned Lily to the obsidian throne room. Not as a warrior, but as an advisor. "You understand humans," he said, "and humans understand meaning better than we ever did." Lily nodded, but she felt a cold knot in her stomach. This was different from the Void Weavers. This was not about memory, but about will. She returned to the Dawn Sparrow and called her closest friends: Claire the engineer, Mara the Krylos, Poet, and Kale the Zenthari scout who had once been her enemy. "We are going to the dead zone," she told them, "the place where the first signal began." Kale frowned, his claws tapping the console. "No ship that enters comes back, even if it survives. The crew returns empty shells. They eat, they breathe, but they do not care about anything. Then we will be the first to come back whole," Lily said. The journey took 12 days. During that time, Lily trained not with weapons, but with silence. She sat for hours in the ship's meditation chamber focusing on one simple truth: I choose to care. Claire worked on shielding the ship's neural network with human music, old songs of hope and heartbreak. Mara wrote a new poem not for glory but for comfort, and Kale mapped every possible escape route, though he knew none might work. When they reached the edge of the dead zone, the stars stopped twinkling. The void here was not black but gray, like ash. The ship's system slowed. The lights dimmed, not from power loss but from lack of purpose. Why keep the lights? A voice whispered in Lily's mind. Nothing matters. She gripped the armrests of her command chair. It matters because I say it does. She activated the armor not for battle but as a shield for her will. The golden glow pushed back the gray. They entered. The dead zone. Time stretched and bent. They passed wreckage of ancient ships, their hulls intact but their crews long gone, not dead. Just gone. As if they had walked out into the void and forgotten to return. Then they saw it, a planet floating alone. In the center of the silence, no sun, no moons, just a world wrapped in stillness as they landed. The air was warm but lifeless, no wind, no insects, no birds. In the center of a vast plain stood a figure tall and thin, wearing a crown of broken clocks. Its face was smooth like polished stone. No eyes, no mouth, just emptiness. The Hollow King, you are late. It said, its voice not sound but the absence of sound. Late for what? Lily asked, stepping forward, her armor pulsing softly. For your end, it replied. You will stay here like all the others. You will forget your name, your pain, your joy, and you will finally be at peace. I do not want that kind of peace, Lily said. Peace is the only truth. The king said, all struggle is noise, all love is error, all hope is a lie told to children. Lily thought of Maya, of her father, of Tharn, of Claire singing off-key in the engine room. Those are not lies, she said. They are what make us real. The king raised a hand and the ground beneath Lily turned to dust. She fell not down but inward into her own mind. Suddenly she was back on Earth, standing in her flower shop. The sun warm on her face, customers laughing. Everything normal. But something was wrong. She could not remember why she cared. Why water the roses? Why smile at the old man who bought daisies every Thursday? Why live at all? This is peace. The king's voice echoed. Lily sat on the floor of the shop, tears streaming down her face. Then she remembered the armor. Not the metal, but what it stood for. She had not become strong because of the armor. She had become strong because she chose to protect others, and that choice still lived inside her. She stood up. No, she said, this is not peace. This is sleep. And I am not done waking up. The vision shattered. She was back. On the plain facing the Hollow King. You cannot win, it said. You cannot fight nothingness with something. Watch me, Lily said. She did not attack. She walked toward the king slowly, and she began to speak. She told the story of her first day on the Iron Maw, how scared she was, how she cried in the dark, but still got up the next morning. She told of Tharn's respect, of Claire's apple pie, of Mara's poems, of Kael sharing his last ration bar with a wounded enemy. She spoke of small acts of kindness, of stubborn hope, of love that made no sense but felt true. With every word the king's form flickered. You lie, it whispered. No, Lily said, I remember. The crown of broken clocks cracked one by one. The king stepped back. You do not understand it, said without meaning. There is no pain, and Lily said softly, but there is also no joy. The king froze. For the first time in eons, it felt something, not pain, not joy, but the ghost of wanting to feel. Lily reached out, not to strike, but to touch its stone face. You do not have to be hollow, she said. The king collapsed, not into dust, but into light. A soft, warm glow that spread across the plain. The gray sky turned bluegrass, pushed through the soil. A bird sang. The dead zone was alive again. On the dawn, Sparrow Claire, cried Mara. Laughed Kale, bowed his head in awe back on the Krylos capital. The change was felt instantly. People who had been listless suddenly hugged their children. Artists picked up brushes again. Farmers returned to their fields. Vorlak stood on his balcony watching the stars twinkle with new life. She did not destroy the enemy, Tharn said beside him. She healed it. Yes, Vorlak said softly. That is the human way. Lily returned not as a conqueror, but as a gardener, planting seeds of meaning in barren places. She visited Earth for the first time in years. Maya's hair was longer, her voice deeper, but her smile was the same. "You came back," Lily said. "You never really left." Maya replied, "You were in every story Mom told me. Every time I was scared, I remembered. You fought monsters and one." Lily held her sister close. "I fought because I had something to come back to in the weeks that followed." Lily helped rebuild not just cities but connections. Schools taught not just facts, but empathy. Leaders listened, not just to data but to hearts. The Krylos Empire changed its name to the Covenant of Stars, a union not of force but of shared purpose. Lily still wore the armor, but now it glowed not in battle but in moments of quiet courage, when a child stood up to a bully, when a stranger shared food, when someone chose kindness over fear. One evening she stood again on the bridge of the dawn, Sparrow Tharn beside her. "Where to next?" he asked. She looked at the stars not as a map of threats, but as a tapestry of stories waiting to be told. "Somewhere out there, someone needs to remember they matter," she said. And so the Ember Blade sailed on, not to fight the darkness, but to remind the universe that even the smallest light can make the void flinch. For Lily had learned the greatest truth of all: strength is not in never falling. It is in choosing to rise again and again, for those you love, for those you have yet to meet, for the simple, beautiful act of caring in a world that tries to make you forget. And that was a story worth telling forever. Months passed since Lily earned the title of Emberblade, and the stars had become her home. She no longer flinched at the sound of plasma fire or the groan of warship hulls under stress. Her armor responded to her thoughts, now moving as if it were her own skin. The glowing lines along its surface pulsed with her heartbeat. She trained daily with Tharn in the Iron Maw's battle dome, learning Krylos combat forms that twisted gravity and bent momentum to the warrior's will. At first, her human body struggled, but the armor adapted, strengthening her bones, reinforcing her muscles until she could leap across chasms and shatter Durasteel with a single punch. Yet not all eyes in the Empire looked upon her with respect. Many Krylos warriors whispered behind her back, calling her the soft one, the borrowed warrior. They said her strength came from the armor, not from her soul, and that when the metal failed, she would crumble like dry leaf. Lily heard the whispers, but said nothing. She let her actions speak. One day a distress call crackled through the comms. A Krylos mining colony on the ice. Muna Virel was under attack, not by the Zenthari, but by something older, something forgotten. Vorlak ordered a fleet to respond, but Tharn insisted on going alone with Lily. "We do not know what we face," he told the Emperor. "If it is a trap, we do not need to lose a whole fleet." Vorlak agreed, and so the Iron Maw jumped to Virel alone. The moon was a frozen wasteland, its surface cracked with deep, blue veins of cryo-crystal. The colony sat in a crater, its domes shattered, smoke rising into the thin air as they landed. Lily felt a strange pull in her chest. Not fear, but recognition, as if something deep in the ice was calling to her. They found no bodies, only empty suits of armor standing in perfect rows, as if the wearers had vanished mid-step. Then the ground shook. From the largest crater rose a being of shifting shadow and ice, its form constantly changing, eyes like frozen stars. Its voice echoed not in sound but in thought. "You wear the armor of the first ones," it said to Lily. "But you are not of the blood." Lily stepped forward, Tharn at her side. "I earned it," she said. The being laughed, a sound like cracking glaciers. "Earned it? The first armor was not given, it was taken from the heart of a dying god. Only those of Krylos blood can wield its true power. You are a hollow shell." Before she could respond, the being lashed out, a whip of pure cold slicing through the air. Tharn blocked it with his energy axe, but the force sent him flying. Lily charged, her armor flared bright red as she struck, but her fists passed through the being like smoke. It reformed behind her and slammed her into the ice. Pain exploded through her body. The armor flickered. "You see," it said, "the being, you are nothing without your shell." But Lily remembered Earth. She remembered her father teaching her to ride a bike, falling again and again, but always getting back up. She remembered Maya's voice singing in the rain. She was not just armor, she was Lily. With a scream, she tore off her helmet. The being paused, confused. "You remove your power." "Why? Because I do not need it to fight you," she said, and she ran at it barehanded. The being struck her with ice shards, each one cutting deep, but she kept moving, blood freezing on her skin, her breath fogging in the air. She reached the being and grabbed its shifting face with both hands. "I am human," she said, and we do not break in that moment. Something strange happened. The being's form stilled, its eyes widened. "You carry the spark," it whispered. "What spark?" "The spark that burned in the first ones before they became Krylos. Before they forgot what it meant to be fragile, to hope, to love." The being dissolved, not in defeat, but in peace, its essence flowing into Lily not as power but as memory. She saw the truth. The Krylos were not born warriors. They were once like humans, soft, curious kind, until war hardened them, until they buried their hearts beneath scales and steel. The armor on her body glowed not red but gold. Tharn rose slowly, his eyes wide. "The legends say the first armor chooses its wearer, not by blood but by spirit," he said. "You were always meant to wear it, back on the Iron Maw." Lily sat in silence, the golden light of the armor dimming to a soft hum. Tharn brought her a cup of warm Krylos tea, bitter but calming. "What will you do now?" he asked. "I do not know," she said. "But I think the armor was never the source of my strength. It was just a mirror showing me what was already their days." Later they returned to the Krylos capital, a city of black spires and floating citadels. News of Lily's victory over the ice wraith spread like wildfire. Even the doubters fell silent when she walked past. But peace did not last. A new threat emerged from the galactic rim. The Void Weavers, beings who fed on fear and erased memories they had already consumed. 3 star systems, leaving behind empty worlds where no one remembered their own names. Vorlak called a war council. "We cannot fight what we cannot remember," he said. "If they touch our minds, we are lost." Lily stood. "He will go," she said. "You do not even know what they are." Thurn argued, "But I know what it means to be afraid and to fight anyway." Vorlak studied her, then nodded. "Go, but do not face them alone." So Lily gathered a small team, not of the strongest warriors, but of those who carried deep memories. A Krylos poet who wrote songs of lost loves, a Zenthari defector who missed his children, a human engineer named Claire, who had rebuilt her home after the invasion. Together they boarded a stealth scout ship, the Night Whisper, as they neared the edge of known space. The stars began to fade, not from distance but from forgetting. Claire looked at her hands. "I cannot remember my mother's face," she whispered. The poet stopped humming his song. The Void Weavers were closely activated her armor, but this time she did not rely on its power. She closed her eyes and held on to her memories. Maya's laugh, her father's hand, on her shoulder the smell of lilacs in springs. She focused on those feelings and shared them with her team. Through the ship's neural link. "Remember," she said, and they did. The Void Weavers appeared not as monsters, but as absences, gaps in reality where light and sound and thought ceased to exist. But Lily walked into the darkness not with weapons but with stories. She spoke of Earth, of Krylos, of Zenthari, of all the small beautiful things that made life worth living. The Void Weavers recoiled. "You burn." With memory they hissed as she said, "And I will not let you take it." Their armor blazed gold again, not with power but with truth. One by one the Void Weavers unraveled, not destroyed but healed their hunger, replaced by the warmth of shared experience. When it was over, the stars returned brighter than before. On the way home, Claire smiled. "I remembered my mother. She said she used to bake apple pie every Sunday." The poet began a new song. Tharn watched Lily with quiet pride. "You did not just fight them," he said. "You gave them something they had lost." Lily looked out at the stars. "Maybe that is what humans are good for." She said, "We remember back at the capital." Vorlak met her not on his throne but in the Garden of Echoes, a place where the voices of the past whispered through crystal leaves. "You have changed the meaning of strength," he said. "I did not change it," she replied. "I just reminded everyone what it really is." From that day the Krylos Empire began to shift. Warriors trained not just in combat, but in compassion. Schools taught the value of memory and kindness. Old enemies shared meals under the same sky, and Lily, the Ember Blade, still sailed the stars. Not as a weapon, but as a bridge between worlds. She knew her journey was not over there, where more threats, more mysteries, more lives to touch. But for now she stood on the bridge of the Dawn Sparrow, watching a new sunrise on a peaceful world below. Earth was home, but the universe was her family, and she would protect them all. Years had passed since Lily first stepped onto the Iron Maw as a trembling girl. Now she stood on the bridge of the Dawn Sparrow, not as a symbol, but as a steady presence. Her name spoken not with awe, but with quiet trust across 100 worlds. The covenant of stars thrived not through conquest, but through connection, and Lily the Ember Blade had become its quiet heart. But peace, like all living things, needed tending. A new signal reached the capital not from the void, but from the core of the galaxy, a place long thought empty of life. The signal was simple, just 3 words repeated in every known language. We are awake. Vorlak called Lily to the high chamber where starlight filtered through crystal arches. The core has been silent for 10,000 cycles, he said. No ship has ever returned from there. The old texts call it the cradle and the gravel. Lily listened, the golden lines of her armor dim but present like a slow heartbeat. What do you think it is? She asked. I do not know, Vorlak admitted, but whatever wakes in the cradle may not see us as friends. Tharn entered, then his armor scarred from recent patrols. His voice low. Scouts report strange energy blooms near the core worlds. Not weapons, not engines, something elderly made. Her choice before the words were fully spoken. I will go not alone, Tharn said. Never alone, she replied. This time her crew was small but deep in spirit. Claire, now chief engineer of the Covenant fleet, Mara, whose poems were taught in schools across 3 species, and Kale, who had become an ambassador between former enemies. They boarded the Dawn Sparrow, not for war, but for witness, as they neared the galactic core. The stars grew denser, brighter, until space itself seemed to hum with ancient power. The ship's sensors could not read what lay ahead, not because it was hidden, but because it existed outside known physics. Then they saw it, a sphere of light floating in perfect stillness. No surface, no edge, just pure presence. The Dawn Sparrow slowed, not by command but by instinct, as if the ship itself held its breath. A voice came not through comms but into their minds. Gentle and vast, like the ocean, welcome child of Earth. Lily stepped forward on the bridge. Who are you? We are the first. We are the seed. We are the dream that became the stars. Images flooded their minds, not of war or gods, but of beginnings. A single spark in the dark, choosing to grow, choosing to share its light with the void. You made life. Lily whispered, we made the chance for life. You and all your kind made it real. Mara's eyes filled with tears. Kale knelt. Claire touched the console as if it were sacred. Why wake now? Lily asked. Because you are ready. The voice replied. You have learned that strength is not domination, that peace is not silence, that difference is not danger. Then what do you want from us? Nothing. The voice said, only to see what you will become. But a shadow stirred at the edge of the light. Not evil, not malice, but doubt. Some among you still fear the unknown. The voice continued, and fear can twist even the best hearts. As if in answer, a fleet appeared on the Censor's Krylo ships, but not of the Covenant. These bore the old sigil of conquest, the mark of those who had refused the new way, led by a warlord named Drazik, who believed the Covenant had grown. Soft Drazik's voice boomed over open channel. Ember Blade, you stand before a weapon of the ancients. Surrender it or be erased. Lily felt the old anger rise, but she breathed it down. It is not a weapon, she said. Lear Drazik snarled, you hoard power while true warriors starve for purpose. He fired plasma bolts streaked toward the sphere, but the light did not fight back. It simply absorbed the energy and returned it as calm as rain. Drazik's ships froze, not broken but stilled, their weapons silent, their rage hollow in the face of such peace. Drazik himself appeared on screen, his face twisted in fury. Why do you not strike? He shouted. Because we choose not to, Lily said. And in that moment, Drazik saw not a warrior but a mirror. He saw his own fear, his own loneliness, his belief that power was the only truth. He fell to his knees inside his cockpit. What have I become? The light pulsed gently. You are still becoming. Drazik ordered his fleet to stand down on the Dawn Sparrow. Claire whispered. I think we just won without a single shot. Lily smiled. That is the point. The voice spoke again to Lily alone. You have carried the flame well, child, now. It is time to pass it. What do you mean? The Ember Blade was never about armor or battles, it was about showing others they too can rise the light. Said, your work here is done, but your story continues in every heart you have touched. The golden glow in Lily's armor faded completely. Not gone, but settled deep within her like a seed. She felt lighter. Not weaker, but free. When they returned to the capital, Drazik stood before Vorlak, not in chains, but in humility. I was wrong. He said, the Covenant is not weakness. It is courage of a kind. I did not understand. Vorlak placed a hand on his shoulder. Then Lily stepped down from the Dawn Sparrow for the last time as its captain. She walked through the capital, not in armor, but in simple clothes. Her hair loose, her hands bare. Children ran to her not to see a hero, but to hear a story. She sat in the garden of echoes, now filled with laughter and music, and told them of a girl who was afraid but chose to care anyway. Tharn found her there as the sun set. What will you do now, he asked. Teach, she said, not with lessons, but with living. She opened a school not for warriors, but for bridge builders. Humans, Krylos, Synthari, and others learned not to fight, but to listen, to share. Tehil Mara wrote a new epic called The Song of the Ember. Not of battles, but of breakfasts shared, of hands held in silence, of tears wiped away. Kale brought his children to visit, and they called Lily. Auntie Lily Claire built a garden on the roof of the school where flowers from earth. Krylos and 100 other worlds grew side by side years later, when new threats rose, as they always would. Young voices would say, remember what Lily did? And they would choose kindness, not because it was easy, but because it was brave. One evening, Lily stood alone on a quiet hill overlooking the city lights below, felt the old pull of the stars, but also the warmth of home. A soft hum rose behind her. She turned. The golden armor stood there, not as a shell, but as a gift waiting. Not for battle, she said softly. Know the light within it whispered, for whatever comes next. Lily smiled. Then I am ready. She did not put it on, not yet. But she knew it would always be there, just as she would always be the girl who chose to rise. And somewhere in the vast dark, a new story began, not with a bang, but with a whisper. I care. And that was enough. The years had settled around Lily like soft earth around a growing tree. She no longer wore the golden armor every day, but kept it in a quiet room at the school where students would sometimes leave flowers or notes beside it. Thank you for showing me I matter. Life in the Covenant of Stars had deepened. Peace was no longer just the absence of war, but a daily choice made in markets, classrooms, and homes across the galaxy. But the universe never sleeps. A strange silence began again. Not the gray emptiness of the Hollow King, nor the fear of the Void Weavers. This was different. Quieter, more patient ships near the outer rim reported their engines working perfectly. Yet they could not move, as if space itself had forgotten how to carry them. People spoke of dreams where they stood in endless halls searching for a door they could not name. Lily felt it too. A hollowness not in her chest, but in the world around her, like a song missing its last note. Tharn came to her one morning. His face lined with worry. The Emperor is ill, he said, not in body but in spirit. He sits on his throne and stares at his hands as if he does not know what they are. For Lily knew then that the threat was not outside, but within the very fabric of meaning they had built. She called her old crew not as warriors but as friends. Claire arrived first, her hands stained with oil from fixing a solar harvester on Mars colony. Mara came next. Her eyes tired from writing comfort letters to grieving families. Kale followed, with his youngest daughter in tow, the girl wide-eyed and clutching a stuffed Zenthari dragon. We are too old for this, Lily said with a smile. We are exactly the right age, Mara replied. They gathered in the garden where Lily now taught children how to plant seeds and listen to silence. What is it this time? Kale asked. I do not know, Lily said, but it feels like the universe is asking a question and no one remembers how to answer. That night Lily dreamed of her father not as he was in war, but as he was at home kneeling in the garden showing her how to prune roses. Why do we cut them, he had asked, so they can grow better. She had answered. He smiled. You remember that? She woke with tears on her cheeks. The next morning she stood before the golden armor, not for battle, she whispered, but for truth. The armor sealed around her not with fire but with warmth, like a hug from someone who knew her soul. They took a small ship, the Starling, a gift from the first human colony on Proxima B, its hull painted with handprints from children of 10 species. As they flew toward the source of the silence, Lily noticed something strange. The stars looked the same but felt distant, like memories seen through glass. When they reached the edge of the anomaly, they found a single planet floating alone, its surface covered not in cities or forests but in mirrors. Millions of mirrors facing the sky. On the surface stood a figure cloaked in silver, its face hidden beneath a smooth mask. "Who are you?" Lily asked through the comms. The question," the figure replied. "What question?" "Why continue?" Lily stepped onto the surface. The others stayed aboard, sensing this was hers alone. The ground beneath her feet was glass, reflecting her armored form endlessly. "You have built peace," the figure said. "You have healed enemies, you have turned weapons into gardens, but still pain exists, still loss, still fear. So why go on?" Lily looked at her reflection. "Because joy exists too," she said, "because one laugh can outweigh 1,000 sorrows, because even in the darkest night someone somewhere is lighting a candle." The figure tilted its head. "That is hope, not reason." "Hope is the deepest reason," Lily said. The mirrors around them began to ripple, showing scenes from across the galaxy. A Krylos child sharing food with a Zenthari elder, a human doctor healing an alien with hands that shook but did not stop, a poet singing to a dying star. The figure removed its mask. Beneath was Lily's own face, older, tired, but kind. "I am you," she said, "the part that wonders if it was all worth it." Lily did not flinch. "I know you," she said. "You visit me every night when the world feels heavy." "Then why do you keep going?" "Because I have seen what happens when we stop," she replied. "And I choose to believe." In the next sunrise, the next song, the next hand reaching out in the dark. The mirror, Lily smiled. "You have passed the test." "What test?" "The final one," the universe asks. "Not can you fight, but will you care?" When caring seems pointless, the mirrors shattered, not into shards but into light. The planet dissolved into stardust. Back on the Starling, Claire hugged Lily tight. "You look lighter," she said. "I feel like I can breathe again." Lily replied. When they returned, the Emperor stood waiting. Not on his throne, but in the garden, his eyes clear. "I remembered my daughter's name," he said. "She loved blue flowers." Lily nodded, tears in her eyes. The silence was gone. But Lily knew this would not be the last time the universe asked its quiet questions, so she returned to her school and taught the children not just how to plant seeds, but how to wait for them to grow, how to care. Even when you cannot see the roots working. One day, a new student arrived, a small Krylos girl with one arm missing from a mining accident. She sat alone at lunch. Lily sat beside Hermie. "Name is Lily," she said. The girl looked up, eyes wide. "You are the Ember Blade." "I used to be." Lily said. "Now I am just Lily." The girl whispered. "I do not think I can be brave." "You do not have to be brave all at once." Lily said. "Just be kind to yourself today, that is enough." The girl smiled. That night, Lily stood on the hill overlooking the city. Tharn joined her. "You could rest now," he said. "Maybe," she said. "But someone has to keep the light alive. You do not carry it alone," he said. She looked at him, then at the stars. Then at the school below, where a single window glowed with a nightlight shaped like a Roseno. She said, "I never did." And somewhere far away, a new child looked up at the stars and whispered, "I will be kind. Tomorrow." And the universe sighed in relief. For as long as one heart chose to care, the story would go on. Lily walked back to the school. Not as a legend, but as a teacher, as a friend, as a woman who knew that the greatest battles were fought not with swords, but with small daily acts of love. The golden armor sat in its room, silent but ready, not for war, but for wonder. And that was the truest victory of all.